Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker, licensed real estate broker right here in Santa Clara County, ready to help you out with all your real estate needs in buying, selling, or investing. And of course, always anxious to help you make the best decisions by providing you with the best information possible to inform those decisions. Now, one great thing that we've talked about on this show before has been house hacking, right? And I'll get into that in a minute and into what that is. Now, I've done tons of shows on it, so if you're new, you may not have heard me talk about it before, but we'll do a quick recap of what that is. But as we sort of wrap up 2023, right, we're in the home stretch here, and as we sort of kind of get ourselves into that Thanksgiving gear this week, as we have Thanksgiving coming tomorrow, I'd like everyone to take a few minutes and sit down and sort of reflect on what's happened over the course of the year. And again, for those of you who've been listening to the show for a while, you know that every year I like to sort of sit back, take stock of what's going on. But in addition to that, sort of do a list. What worked and what didn't work for you this year? What are some mistakes you made and what lessons did you learn from, and what things did you do right that you can leverage off of as you move forward? I think these are healthy things to do. I usually try to do a post-mortem on anything, like whether it's an escrow that closes or it's a decision that I made. You know, I like to do, usually if it's a financially based thing, an investment thing, I'll usually wait till the end of the year to do an overall estimate of whether that was a good call or not. But I'm encouraging all of you to do that. And it doesn't have to be a huge deal. You can just jot down a few ideas. But I think it's a great exercise to go through to sort of be self-aware enough and willing to criticize things that you may have done and learn from it, right? It's only a mistake if you don't learn from it. It may be an error, and it may always end up being an error, but at least if you learn from it, it's not a mistake. I categorize mistakes as errors that are made from which we do not learn or change, right? So let's just avoid the mistakes because those are ones that you carry with you forever. So let's jump in. This is an interesting one. This is news from the FHA, and it's a new multifamily loan, and I think it's something that a lot of people could benefit from. And boy, do I wish this existed way back when because over the last couple of years, one of the main avenues that I used to advise my buyer clients was to go into house hacking. And so what is house hacking? House hacking is when you find yourself a property that's a multifamily, either a duplex, triplex, or quad. Never more than a quad, because if you stay at 4 units or less, you can still qualify for the advantageous rates that you normally get with a regular mortgage just buying a single family residential home. So if you're a beginner or if you're someone who's been doing investing for a while, this may be tougher for you because one of the qualifications for this is you have to be currently renting. However, I think this is a great way to kickstart your potential real estate empire, whatever form that may take. This is going to be those ones, if I am correct in my assessment, that you have to be someone who's paying rent for you to qualify for. And I'm going to suggest that even if you're not paying rent right now, you check with your lender on this one and make sure that that's actually a requirement. Everything I've seen written about it, they mention the requirement of being a renter, but what's interesting is that some of it is linked with other rental income you may be getting that would or would not then count. So there is a little bit of a cloud there. So as you're talking to your rental people, as you're talking to your loan people with interest in this product, you might want to ask them, what that requirement is, and also ask them what is the length of time requirement. For instance, let's say that you are not currently a renter. Let's say you are a homeowner, but let's say you could move out of this house and rent a house and then go to get this plan to buy a multifamily. There's no requirement that you be a first-time buyer. I see no limitations on having previously had a mortgage or currently having a mortgage outstanding. So from what I can see, if you're someone who wants to start building that empire, you could easily move out of the house you currently live in and rent it out, move into a house you're going to rent, and rent that house until you are able to use this new loan program to buy yourself a multifamily unit. And you might be saying to yourself, why would I want to put myself to that kind of trouble? Well, because this is a pretty big deal. I think this is a excellent venue. So what I'm trying to point out here is that while this is obviously a great first step for someone who is a renter and wants to buy, it's also an amazing potential thing to leverage for investors because the new standards are amazing. So let's quickly run over them. So it's effective November 18th, 2023. So it's already going, right? It's already been around for a few days. However, now you only need to put 5% down. And previously that number was 15 to 25% required previously. And again, it applies to duplexes, triplexes, and plexes and fourplexes. The maximum loan on a 2-unit, so a duplex, would be $929,850. On a 3, and this is the amount you have to finance. So the number that I'm going to give you now is what max price is. In other words, let's say you're going into Zillow, let's say you're going into Trulia. In order to qualify for this program, assuming you're putting down your 5%, you could search for anything that is priced at, for a duplex, $978,785 or less. For a triplex, you could search for anything $1,183,050 or less. And for a quad or a 4-unit, you could search for anything at $1,470,315 or less. So keep that in mind. In most markets, that's a pretty substantial number. In fact, I could almost make that work in my market. There are properties that come up right here in Santa Clara County where this would absolutely work. I think this is also interesting because of the existence of this. I think we're going to find some interesting banding of pricing on multi-unit properties to make them possible to purchase using this particular program as knowledge of it gets disseminated out more among sellers of multi-unit properties. Now, the new program requires you to have 6 months of the full payment in reserve after paying the down payment and closing costs. You don't have to pay it, but you have to have the money in a quote-unquote accessible account. Now, the examples I've seen given are checking, savings, that kinds of stuff. I would want to also see how accessible is accessible. If you've got a 401k, if you've got a E-Trade account with a bunch of investments in it, does that count, right? So you need to talk to your lender to find that one out for sure. Next, owner occupancy is required. You can't buy a 4-unit and rent all 4 units. So you'd have to live in one of those units. In many cases, though, particularly here in Santa Clara County, in the folks I helped over the last couple of years, actually none of the folks I helped over the last couple of years ended up being able to buy in Santa Clara County. They ended up buying in the Central Valley. But they found places where one did a duplex, and with the second unit being rented, this particular buyer was able to cover, I think, not just the mortgage, but something like 95% of all expenses. So it was actually a really good deal for her. And the math just came out really good, and we ended up getting a really good deal. Now, one proviso is it did need some work, and she had a family member who was a contractor that was going to help her out. So obviously, a lot of those costs were not going to have to be absorbed by her. That would normally be absorbed by a normal buyer. But the point is, there are some amazing deals to be had out there. Future rental income can be used to qualify for a mortgage loan down the road. You must meet the income requirements, so you can't be doing this with no income. And you must be paying rent where you currently live. And again, even if you're not paying rent where you currently live, I would reach out to a lender and get more details on this and find out how you could qualify. If it is required that you be a renter, find out what are the requirements to define me as a renter. So just see if you can't figure that out. As I said, it doesn't say anything about previously having a mortgage or currently owning a property. It doesn't seem to exclude you based on that. Now, FHA self-sufficiency tests have also been removed for this loan. This is a big deal. Self-sufficiency tests requires 75% of the rental income from 3 to 4 unit properties to be greater than the monthly mortgage payments. As noted, this requirement has been removed. So that's great news, right? This did exist when my clients were buying, and it was a tough one to push through. On the upside, though, I was also able to use it as a negotiation tool when we were going back and forth on price, trying to let let the seller know that we needed to come to a better agreement on the price so that it would qualify under this particular program. Another really interesting element of this particular loan is you can use a home style renovation loan with this program to cover the cost of proposed renovations. Let's say it is in distressed state, or let's say there's some work that needs to be done. Let's say there's some obsolescence and you want to upgrade those things. Let's say you want to make it so there is laundry facilities in both units of the duplex, or you want to add whatever, right? Something needs to be updated. Maybe there's some remodeling work that needs to be done. You can roll it into this and it can be covered by this mortgage using a home style loan. However, just keep in mind that it would be rolled in, so you'd still be paying interest on that. So, I mean, you'd want to do the math and figure it all out, but it's a great way to take care of renovations you'd want to do to the unit and wrap it up into the mortgage instead of having to come up with that in cash after the fact. Buyer must move into the property within 60 days and live in the property for at least 1 year. I think that's entirely reasonable. And after, you'd want to live in a place like that for a year anyway. So I think that you could then at that point start looking into, what do you do next? Do you take advantage of this program again? And if so, how do you reestablish yourself as a renter to qualify for the next one? But being able to only put 5% down is a huge deal. And as was noted here, for a future mortgage, rental income can count. So you'd have this additional income that you could then count towards that purchase after the 1 year time frame is up. Benefits to this, aside from what we've already talked about. Frankly, and this is a benefit that's always been true of house hacking, is if you want to become someone who gets income from real estate, house hacking, I think, is one of the best ways to do it if potential property renting is what you want to do. It is much safer. It can be a little bit annoying if you are living there and your tenants know you're the owner of the property. However, having said that, I know some folks, again, the client in Stockton created an LLC to be the manager of this property, and the other folks that lived in the building did not know she was the owner. They just sent money to an account, and that was kind of it. So you can run it that way, or you can hire a outside property management firm. Now, I would say that you would, because you'll be living there and because you'll be managing, you'd need to create more of a cooperative relationship with a local property manager, with just the idea of establishing them as the contact person for your tenants, or to be the face of management if you want to try to remain anonymous as the property owner. It will cost you something, but I think you could probably negotiate something below the usual rate of about 10% of the gross rents. I personally wouldn't do that. I honestly think that if you just let them know that you're the homeowner, I don't think that's a huge problem, but it needs to be tempered by you using extremely good tenant screening processes to make sure that you are being super smart about how you rent that property on the front end, right? The best income property, you're going to make your money before that person ever even moves in if you've carefully picked your tenants. So just keep that in mind. Now, I think one other benefit is it reduces the stress for first-time investors, particularly since you're there. You can physically see what's going on. There is no mystery. It's all right there happening in front of you. So a lot of the things that come from simply being distant from the property or not seeing all the time is eliminated. Valuable experience in managing a rental property, I think, happens in your scenario like this. And then, of course, tenant qualification will be something that you'll learn. And you'll learn these lessons as you go through these. And what's really great is, and this is something that I think I've talked to an awful lot of buyers who had very interesting misconceptions about multi-unit homes. And one of them is a huge number, particularly the ones here in Morgan Hill. I mean, we have some great duplexes here in Morgan Hill that I just love. But that feels like single-family residential living, or at worst, townhome living. You share one wall. It's typically the garage and the kitchen wall that gets shared. I've even seen some where you don't share a wall, where there's a little sort of gap between the two buildings. So it's two freestanding single-family residential homes that are just on the same lot. Most of the ones here you're going to see, the 90% rule is going to be sharing a wall. But if you're buying right, these feel like single family residential homes, and they're going to be far more attractive. That's even true in triplexes in many cases. Once you get into quads, that's when it starts to feel like apartment living, because normally with quads, you'll see a 2-story building with 2 units on the ground floor and 2 units on the second floor, and it very much harkens back to that apartment vibe. And you're going to need to decide for yourself what works best for you. I do find frequently quads that do have, say, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and the other 3 units are, say, a 2-in-1 or a 1-in-1. So it gives you the opportunity to get yourself into a unit that's going to be that 3-bedroom, 2-bath home that you're looking for, but then also have these income opportunities for you. And you can decide what your minimum requirements are. Do you not need a 3-bed, 2-bath? Maybe you only need a 2-bed, 1.5-bath. I've seen that configuration as well. So there are options out there. This is something I track here in Santa Clara County all the time. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out. But I think this particular rental option here, this particular mortgage option is a great one with only having to put down 5%. Now, of course, the reserves amounts are kind of high, but I think that if you've saved enough here, you can probably qualify for these. And if you've got any sort of retirement account, I'm willing to bet that those accounts would qualify for you in terms of accessible money that you can have. Because remember, this isn't money you have to come up with. You don't have to give this money to anybody. You just have to show that you have the resources to make this mortgage payment for 6 months. So I think that's a great way to go. Now, I hope this has been valuable for you. I'm always encouraging folks to consider slightly off the beaten path options when it comes to getting into a new home, simply because the competition on those more commonly treaded paths is just too strong right now. After the coffee and real estate show that we just did this last Saturday and covered all the numbers for Santa Clara County, including San Jose, Morgan Hill, and Gilroy, we're seeing multiple offers. We're seeing homes selling for over asking price. And that competition is not as strong in the multifamily world. So there's a little bit more room for negotiation. There's a little bit more room for you to potentially save. And with this as an option, that's just stunning. So hopefully it'll be something that you could take advantage of. All right. I hope that has been helpful. If you would like to start your home search, head on over to soldbyrobert.com. That's my website where I offer all the tools to my clients. And of course, there's also a tool on there to get a free instant home valuation right there on the front page, soldbyrobert.com, above the fold, impossible to miss. I like to keep it focused right on providing the best possible tools in the world for you to start your either considering selling your home or starting your home search. So make sure to check that out there. All right. I hope that was valuable information. The goal is always to leave more information on the table than I take up in your time. Hope we've achieved that today. Thanks again for listening, everybody. We'll talk to y'all next time.